Hello, welcome back to NextGen. And we're here now for the breakout session, Designing a Work Experience that Promotes Well-Being and Performance. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Susan Kirby-Smith, and I'm Senior Staff Writer at GovLoop. I'm also your moderator for this session. So we're going to get started talking about well-being. Well-being is a crucial thing for both employees and organizations to think about, and it really can't be left up to chance because neglecting well-being can have serious consequences both in your personal life and professionally. So this breakout session will help you better understand some of the causes of burnout in the workplace and how, as an individual contributor or manager, you can design an employee experience that fuels well-being and performance. Before we begin, I have a few reminders to go over. If you're on social media, we'd love to know what you're learning, so use the hashtag NextGenGov to share your takeaways. We have some great resources available for you to download, including this slide deck, so be sure to check those out in the resource module of your console. We hope you don't have any technical difficulties, but if you do, send a message to the Q&A tab and my colleague Blake will help you out. In the same Q&A portal, you can post questions for our expert, so just drop them in whenever. We also have an open chat available for you today, so you can interact with other attendees there. If you miss something in this session, don't worry, we'll email you a link to the entire event tomorrow. Also, we are giving out 1 CPE credit for your participation today in today's session. There are 3 things you need to do to get that. Stay and participate for the whole session. Take all the polls. The polls will be shown in the slides window. You select your response there and click Submit to send in your answer. Also, fill out the post-event CPE evaluation, which is in the resource module on the console or at the resource center in the main environment. All CPEs will be emailed directly to you once we confirm that you've met the requirements. So with that housekeeping out of the way, let me introduce you to our expert. Joining us is Dr. Noha Gaber. Noha is Acting Deputy Director of the Office of Planning, Analysis, and Accountability in the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. She's got tons of insights and experience to share with you about well-being. So Noha, it's all yours.
Thank you so much and welcome everyone. Hello, hello, hello. So glad that you're here and so glad to be back at NextGen. I got involved with NextGen over a decade ago and always really excited to join the summit, especially when it used to be in person and got a chance to meet so many different people. But now that it's virtual, I think the reach is just even greater. So it's not lost on me that this breakout session is competing with another session on the hot topic of artificial intelligence. But thank you so much for joining this one. The fact that you joined this session tells me that you're my people. You care about the human dimension in the workplace and how to make it a healthy one. I really wish I could see you all, but in the absence of that, I would love to see you typing in the session chat. I've got it here on my second monitor so I can see the engagement happening. I'd love to learn more about you, your name, your agency, where you're tuning in from, what you're most interested in learning about in this session. I want to make sure that you're getting the most value out of this conversation. And I really look forward to spending the next hour together. I see some folks from Georgia. Oh, wow, all the way from Wyoming and Colorado. Wow, that's awesome. Oh my goodness, Michelle from EPA. So good to see you. Love it, love it. Welcome everyone. So again, my name is Noha Gaber. You can call me Noha, you can call me Dr. Noha, Dr. Gaber, it really doesn't matter. I'm what I would call a dedicated public servant. Dr. Hawkins mentioned this morning the connective tissue. And I feel like my connective tissue in my career in government has been on focusing on both the organizational health and performance of government agencies. I've worked in 5 government agencies throughout my career. EPA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the architect of the Capitol, the Economic Development Administration, the Office of Management and Budget in the White House. It's been a really great learning experience and an opportunity to contribute to a wide range of missions. But really, what I am so passionate about is how to improve government and enable us to better deliver value for the American public, and do so while cultivating a healthy organizational culture. I also want to introduce you to my office mate, Cleo, my cat, my 3-year-old cat. This fur ball of cuteness is a big part of my well-being when I'm working from home. Actually, she's sitting right next to me. She's very experienced in listening to meetings and conference calls all day long, and she sends her hellos as well. So I want to do a quick check-in and have you guys answer in the chat a quick poll. What is your energy level right now? 1 being completely depleted, and 5 fully charged. Just like a ball of energy and super charged up and ready to roll. Four, great. I see some 1s and 2s. Oh, and a 4.5. Amazing. Oh, wow. And a 1. Well, hopefully in the span of this session, we're going to work together to raise those energy levels up. Awesome. So here's what we're going to be covering in today's session. What we're not going to be covering is what most sessions on well-being cover: mindfulness, yoga, napping, fitness, work-life balance, therapy, nutrition. But what we're actually going to be focusing on are how to manage energy and cultivate flow in your daily experience at work, and what I call the 7 C's of designing an employee experience that boosts well-being and performance. So although I was introduced as the expert on this, I really want to make sure that we make this a collaborative experience. I have some thoughts and ideas and insights to share, but I'm sure you all do as well. So I really encourage you to participate in the session, use the chat to ask questions, to share your thoughts, and really engage others as well. And one thing I would add, as we are getting familiarized with this platform, which is really great, the slides might appear on your end to be slightly smaller than my picture as the presenter. There is a button in the top right-hand corner. If you hover over the slide, it will expand the slide. I want to make sure that you're able to see the slides to the fullest extent that you need to. All right, so let's dive in. Let's set the stage here. Employee well-being is definitely an increasing part of our daily conversations and our work experience. Study upon study upon study, article upon article upon article talk about how many employees are experiencing burnout. And most recently as well, studies are finding that like, for example, one study found that 68% of employees and 81% of C-suite executives are having a shift in their priorities. They consider working on their well-being to be more important than advancing their careers. For the longest time, career advancement has been the main driving force for professionals. But we're starting to see the tide turning. It's not that we don't aspire for career growth, but we're also increasingly realizing that true success encompasses more than just professional accolades. We're no longer wanting to survive in the workplace, but we want to thrive. So that's definitely something that is on many of our minds. So employee well-being really is an individual's holistic state of health, happiness, and satisfaction in the context of their workplace. There's a physical dimension, the level of energy and health that you have in the physical in your body. There's a mental dimension, your ability to make decisions, learn, be connected to the work. There's an emotional dimension, finding and fostering positive relationships with others. There's also, the need for strong social interactions and teamwork, and that contributes to job satisfaction as well. And of course, there's a financial component. We all need to be paying our bills and make sure that we're fairly compensated for the work that we do. So employee well-being is this holistic approach of understanding the varied aspects of what makes our workplace environment a healthy one for us. And the consequences of neglecting employee well-being have both a personal component as well as one for the organization. So neglecting employee well-being shows up in our daily realities as an overwhelming sense of exhaustion, a loss of focus and motivation, mood swings, and a level of anxiety, and maybe even getting to a level of depression. It starts to strain our relationships. We really don't show up in our best selves. And God forbid, it also starts to manifest as physical health issues. For organizations, it also starts to affect the way that organizations are able to operate, decreasing productivity, reducing performance, decreasing morale, more absenteeism, more people calling in sick, more people leaving, and just burning out and being exhausted. So I want you to take a step back and go ahead and, if you're comfortable, close your eyes and really remember a situation when you felt depleted at work. Really try to remember how you were feeling during that time. And then think about a time when you were rocking and rolling at work. Really remember the feelings that you had during that situation. The emotions that you were feeling, what you were doing. So for each of those situations, think about what type of work were you doing? Where were you working? What kind of breaks did you take? Did you take care of yourself physically and mentally and emotionally? Who were you working with? What was your commute into the office like, if you had a commute? What was happening in the background? Was it just about a difference in workload? Like you got depleted because you had a lot to do? Or were there other things that were sapping your energy? I've personally had days where they were super packed, juggling multiple projects, going from one meeting to the next, talking to a bunch of different people. But I ended that day feeling super energized because things were flowing. I was working with people that were collaborative. We were making progress. So it wasn't just a workload issue for me. It was more than that. So individually, we have different preferences and we have different things that impact our ability to be energized or deplete our energy. But yes, there are things that we can do individually to understand ourselves and balance our own needs and priorities and show up and bring our best selves to work and have a strong work ethic. But employee well-being is also a matter of design. Designing our work environment, the work that we do and how it's managed, designing the workplace interactions and behaviors. Burnout is really a management and organizational issue. I believe it's not, in the most part, a physical or mental health issue. It's about how our workplaces are designed and managed. So it's not about just, telling people to take care of themselves and promoting self-care to help them recover from stressful work environments, but it's about taking a step back and thinking collectively. How is the work being planned and managed, and how are interactions in the workplace helping to support employee well-being and keeping energy levels in a healthy and positive space? So think of burnt out employees as canaries in a coal mine. When the canary keels over and we acknowledge that the environment is hazardous, we don't tell the canary to go take a long weekend and take a breather and come back to the same unhealthy environment. We try to make sure that we use that as a signal that something's not quite right here. We need to make some changes. Is this resonating? Does this make sense and seem to kind of fit with your experiences? Yes.
Absolutely for me.
Great. So coming to the 7 C's, and I basically came up with these just based on a lot of observation and experience and trying different things. And it's one model. It's not the model, but it's one model that might be helpful for us to kind of keep in mind on the things that holistically impact employee well-being in the office or in the workplace. Starting off with clarity. The next one being coaching and competence building. The third, communication. The fourth, collaboration. The fifth, commendation. The sixth, community and culture building. And finally, the seventh, continuous improvement. So I personally feel that each one of these is going to necessitate a session on its own. So I'm going to try to do my best to cover them in today's session, but give you some thoughts and ideas. But again, I'm not going to be able to cover everything. And I really encourage you, if you have ideas or thoughts, to jump in the chat and add and contribute as well. And as we're covering these, I'd like to introduce you to Sam. So Sam is a management and program analyst in a federal agency. She has 2 years of federal experience. She was really drawn to the agency for the agency's mission. She loves the agency's mission and the value that it holds for the American public. But she's really not sure about a long-term culture there or career there. So today, we're going to explore her journey as she is experiencing her workplace and how that impacts her well-being. So she just got out of a morning meeting with her manager. He was talking about a new project. He was using all sorts of acronyms and technical jargon. She felt a little overwhelmed. She's, a recent addition to this business administration team, struggling to keep up with just the tons of new information that she's getting and not really able to piece it together. She tried to ask for clarification, but he basically was just like, just roll with it, Sam. You'll figure it out. So deflated, she went back to her desk and looked at the project brief. And it wasn't clear to her either. So her energy was starting to, even in the morning, starting to decline. So the first item, as I mentioned, is clarity. And oftentimes employees find themselves in a journey of piece together a jigsaw puzzle without knowing what the final picture is supposed to look like. Does that sound familiar? We're having to figure it out, this piece of information, add this other piece of information. What is my role actually supposed to be? So clarity really is about understanding in our individual role, our tasks and expectations, how our colleagues or other individual team members' portfolios fit together. I know my colleague is supposed to be working on a particular aspect of the project. Do I really understand the expectations that they have? clarity on the team's collective goals. What are we working to accomplish? Like, what is it, just a set of tasks that we're all working on, but we have no clear idea of what it's leading to, what it's amounting to? Clarity on the work processes and procedures that we need to follow. Oftentimes, those are not written down anywhere. Those are not documented. Those are not trained on. They're in somebody's head because they've been doing them for a long time. Clarity on communication norms, meeting cadence, how we ask for information, where to find information. And also, increasingly in a hybrid environment, clarity on what activities the team must perform in the same location. So when are those things that we really need to be back together to work on? And what could be done in different locations? We're working remotely from different work environments. And how are those working patterns managed as we adjust to a more hybrid way of working? So this is the best case scenario. Sam is coming into an organization. She has a clear idea of her role, what is expected of her, what her tasks are. She understands what her team members are working on as well, and what they're contributing to collectively. She knows where to go and find the various processes that she needs to follow. And she knows how to communicate with the rest of her team, especially those that are not based in the same office. They're in a different location, maybe different time zone even. So moving along to a little bit later in the day, Sarah, another member of the team, saw how Sam was really overwhelmed and unsure about how to engage in this new project that the team was supposed to be working on. So this time, Sarah really wanted to help. She started asking Sam about her experience, her work on previous projects, really carefully explaining the team's current workflow, the processes that they follow, what has worked well in the past, what to keep an eye out on. What is this project actually contributing to? Why is it important? And when Sam asked questions, because of course she's always going to have questions and she's new to this work, Sarah answered them patiently and offered to connect her with other team members, or offered to show her other resources that she could read and understand the work and get a better picture of the project. So as a result of that, Sam's energy began to increase. She felt a little bit more confident in her ability to engage in this project. So that takes us to the next C in the 7 C's on competence or coaching and competence building. Working in any workplace, we have to make sure that employees are well equipped and work in an environment where they feel psychologically safe, and there are high performance standards that they understand the goals that they're working to accomplish, what excellence looks like, and are constantly encouraged to increase their level of knowledge, their skills, their competence in the work that they do, and really energized to do so. So one researcher in this field of psychological safety, Amy Edmondson, came up with this really interesting framework around psychological safety versus performance standards. So when psychological safety is low and performance standards are low, people are apathetic. People show up at their work with their hearts and minds elsewhere. They are trying to protect themselves. They're not going to give more than what is the bare minimum, and they're just going to try to hide behind the scenes and not really engage. And that's not healthy well-being either. They're not being challenged. They're not being the mental and cognitive part of their work experience is not really being tapped. But at the flip side, if performance standards are high, but there's low psychological safety, that's the anxiety zone. Nobody wants to be in the anxiety zone. People are reluctant to offer ideas. They don't want to try new things. They just hunker down and don't ask for help or provide help to anybody. It's this constant feeling of anxiety. When psychological safety is high, but employees are not being challenged, that's the comfort zone. People are open, collegial, but not challenged and not making much progress, which can then create other problems when team members are not really pulling their weight or are missing deadlines. It's okay, it's acceptable, but then it starts impacting other team members, and that creates another kind of negative feedback loop in the workplace. So where the magic really happens is where the psychological safety is high and the performance standards are high. So employees are encouraged to collaborate, to learn, to work together to achieve goals and look for better ways to do the work, because the environment supports them in continuously improving. So that's a really important part of creating competence and coaching employees towards excellent performance while creating an environment that is also healthy. I want to take a quick look at the chat that's coming in, make sure I'm not missing any of the questions or great contributions. Great. And I will definitely cover some of those aspects as well. Thank you. So for managers in particular, again, focusing on creating the conditions for employees to thrive and do their best work. There are a variety of tools, but it really takes intentional focus on equipping employees with clarity, with constructive feedback, making sure that managers are working with employees as a team, that they understand individually the level of skill or knowledge or the level of motivation that an employee has at a given point in time or on a given task. And I really like this situational leadership model developed by the Blanchard Group that focuses on identifying where employees are on a spectrum of high competence or competence or commitment. And for employees that are somewhat like Sam, she is highly committed. She's super passionate about her mission, agency mission, and the work that they are setting out to do. But she's new. She's junior. She doesn't have a lot of experience and doesn't have a lot of competence in that work. So she's an enthusiastic beginner. In that case, the manager should take a more directive role, providing specific instructions to build her competence in that area and build her skills in that area, and providing continuous feedback on her progress and how well she's doing, as well as areas that she could improve. And really, I'm not saying micromanage. I'm saying be very closely involved. And more senior team members could take on that role as well, of recognizing the level of motivation and commitment, capitalizing on that, and then also providing clarity and instruction to build the level of competence. Other employees might be on a different part of the spectrum. The disillusioned learner, as they call it, have some competence, but now they've kind of slid back into a low level of commitment. And in that case, the level of engagement with that employee shifts to more of a coaching model of being both supportive and encouraging, but also directive, to make sure that that employee takes that opportunity to elevate their level of commitment again, making sure that expectations are set. And it's important to do that because, again, there are times when employees just are not able to give that level of energy, but it's important to set expectations to ensure that is not negatively impacting other team members as well. Sorry, I'm recovering from a bad cold, so it might come up again. Moving on to the capable but cautious performer. That individual has high competence, but their commitment comes in and out. And at that stage, the level of engagement turns more into a supportive role. Their level of competence is, they know the work, it's there. They've got the skills, they've got the knowledge, they've got the experience. So they don't need to be directed. They don't need to be closely managed, but they need gentle support and pushes to get them to elevate their level of commitment and maintain their level of commitment. And then employees at the other end of the spectrum that are highly competent, highly committed, they really need to be given more autonomy. They need to be delegated to and entrusted with the work and entrusted with coming up with new ideas and expanding their skill set and continuously supporting their level of growth. So again, this is one model, but the core here is that employees are different and are on a given task or a given position, they might have different levels of energy, motivation, and competence. And it's really important that for managers and more senior members of a team that they pay close attention to encouraging, coaching, and building the competence of individual team members so that the team as a whole is able to elevate their level of performance and their level of commitment while making sure that nobody's left behind and nobody's feeling that they're not valued and they're not an important part of the team. All right, well, time for some engagement here with a poll question, and it's scenario based. So you're working on a complex task with a tight deadline. Your teammate, who usually performs well, seems to be struggling to grasp a key concept. You've tried explaining it once, but they still seem unsure. And so what's the best course of action from your perspective? Is it A, ask your manager to step in and explain it themselves? B, briefly explain it again, but in a different way? Or C, move on with your own work and let them figure it out? Or D, offer to help them find additional resources or tutorials online? And I'll give you guys about a minute to respond to that poll. Let me ask Blake, because I'm not sure how to, oh, there we go, when I hover over it. Okay, so about 51%, 56% of you all have answered, so thank you so much. We'll give folks another 10 seconds. And thank you. Yes, you can select your preferred selection on the slide itself. Yeah, great. Well, thank you all so much for participating. And wow, overwhelmingly 62.6% for B, and that is the right answer in this case, right? So asking your manager to step in might help eventually, but it really delays progress and it avoids the opportunity for the teammate to learn and to establish a closer collaborative relationship with you. B, moving on with your own work and leaves them stuck. Obviously, that is not a good thing to do, and it'll cause problems later. D, in the long run, offering resources and additional tutorials might be helpful, but that's not what they need at this point. By explaining it to them in a different way, you're demonstrating initiative, you're helping your teammate learn. You can try out different approaches, like changing the language that you use. Some people are visual learners, so you might have to draw it out. And that also builds your leadership skills as well. That you're changing your approach depending on a team member's needs. So thank you so much for participating here. All right. So remember Sam. Let's go back to Sam and check in on how she's doing. So unfortunately, things are not getting better. The afternoon brought a communication breakdown of epic proportions. Sam was seeing a flurry of emails pile up in her inbox as she was working on a spreadsheet to compile data. She tried to ignore it, but then all of a sudden, alerts started coming in through the Teams chat, and she got flustered. What is going on? The team had been working on a report, and a couple of colleagues had missed the emails on the latest draft of the report. So they were working off of a previous draft, and version control was a nightmare. And not just that, but they didn't have the access to the latest data and didn't know where to go to find it. They used out-of-date data, and that was significantly different from the data that Sam was analyzing. So the flurry of internal emails flew back and forth, and each person questioning the other person, and people started getting really frustrated, and tension was growing. And Sam was sitting there feeling caught in the crossfire, and her level of energy began to sink even deeper. So taking another deep breath. Sometimes it feels like this in our workplaces. On average, in some cases, we could be receiving up to 75 to 100 emails a day. Sometimes people treat emails like instant messaging chats. And sometimes emails are a page long with blocks of text, and you have to spend tons of time reading that and trying to make sense of it, if you have time to pay attention to it at all. So a lot of times it feels like we're drowning in communication overload, but we're not well informed. So I see that that does resonate. Been there, done that. Everyone's other favorite, meeting fatigue. Let's add meetings on top of email, on top of team chats. How many of you have experienced days that were literally jumping from one meeting to the next? And not only that, the meetings are not well designed. There's often no clear purpose, no agenda. There are too many people who don't know why they are there, or the meeting organizer forgot to invite key people. And so it becomes a game of, oh, well, now we need to prepare for another meeting to include those other people. So now this meeting is to actually design another meeting. Frequently, all the time. And actually also like increasingly in this hybrid environment, right? After the COVID pandemic, research has found that although in some cases, the number of meetings, or sorry, the length and duration of meetings may have slightly declined, the number of meetings have actually increased. 92% of employees consider meetings a waste of time. And 70% of meetings keep employees from working and completing their tasks. So you go from one meeting to the next, and lo and behold, the day is over, and it's like, where is the time for me to actually do my work? So there's a 71% decrease in productivity, an increase in employee stress, and a decrease in employee satisfaction, and also an increase in micromanagement. Meetings are the worst in some cases. Absolutely more frequent with this hybrid environment. That's right. We still haven't figured out how to do this well, but we will. The other aspect of this is busy work. So the emotional and productivity cost of poorly planned communication, including meetings, should not be underestimated. Another survey, I'm full of surveys today, found that globally, workers found that the majority of their day was busy doing busy work. 57% of their time was doing work about work, like having a meeting to discuss what we're going to talk about in another meeting, or trying to find information that you need to do your work, or switching between one system to another, or shifting priorities that come up in the middle of the day, or duplicating tasks because of a breakdown in communication, or chasing status updates and bugging people and distracting people. Only 33% of the time was spent on actually doing work that they were hired to do. And even worse, 10% of the time was, if that, focused on doing strategic planning that could help them do their jobs better. So individually, again, that's an energy sapper. That is something that is going to negatively impact well-being. But organizationally, it's also a huge detriment to productivity. If folks are spending so much of their time not actually doing work that's meaningful, it's going to decrease their productivity and energy to the point that in some cases, studies found that the amount of loss of productivity is the same as hiring 5 people and then 1 person not showing up for work. So as you can imagine, especially as we talk about there's an increased amount of work, increasing workload, and not enough resources to do it, when we take a look at how we're actually using our time and our resources to do that work, if we're not optimizing it, it's creating negative energy, decreased productivity, and then it's also having that negative feedback loop of we're not able to maximize the use of the resources that are at hand. And again, people get burnt out, people leave, attrition is happening. The work that remains to be done is handed over to other people, so they have growing plates. But at the same time, because of the way that work is managed, they're not able to do it well. And it's just a negative, constant feedback loop. I think it's resonating with a bunch of you. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. So in terms of communication, again, different models, different approaches. But I think it's really time for us to get smart about designing communication. And by that, I mean how information is shared and retrieved. It's not just how we talk to each other, which is really important, and we're going to get to that. It's not just about communication style. It's about really being intentional about the purpose of the communication. Are we seeking to inform, to discuss, to enlist support, to encourage action? How that communication happens? Is it in an email, meeting, other channels that exist? And for each of these purposes, it may be one or more of these channels that are most effective. And in some cases, using the wrong channel to provide the information is actually detrimental. There's also a really important difference in the type of communication. So we have an over-reliance, pretty generally, on push communications. We send out emails, we send out broadcast messages, we send out meeting invites and have meetings where we're pushing out information. But that's not how people absorb information most of the time. In some cases, that's necessary, but it has to be fine-tuned so that it's appropriate for the highest need that it serves. And in other cases, we have to rely on making information available for people to pull it when they need to. So in some cases, and this is something that I worked on years ago when I set up my agency's Office of Internal Communications, our strategy was to optimize communications so that employees felt informed and we're not inundating them with communication, but at the same time, make it easier for them to find information about what's going on in the agency, how to access different, systems or services, access different resources and training on those resources, how to, find out who has the information, be able to get to them in an easy and efficient way and not have to spend 50% of their time trying to find the information or the person that they need to talk to. So designing the pull type of communication is really important as well. And then there's also a difference between synchronous versus asynchronous communication. So synchronous communications, we're all getting together at the same time, maybe in different locations. We're doing it virtually, or we're doing it through a team chat. We're all live working together or communicating together. And that needs to be well designed. And then there's asynchronous communication, where information is shared or made available in a way that is designed to avoid too much noise and confusion. And finally, the fourth point is tone. In times of, people are stressed, things are moving very quickly, we may not pay attention to the tone that we use. And especially if we're using the wrong channel, if we're using email, that doesn't carry tone very well. It doesn't carry, and it could be very easily misinterpreted. So getting smart about designing communication, how we share information or make information available so that it's retrieved, is really important to making sure that employees are feeling less of that communication overload, but more connected to where they're able to find the information they need to do their jobs. And then as a result, they're able to use less of their energy on meaningless, busy work and chasing down information. Let me take a quick look at the chat there too. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry you had to leave a job because of the work environment. I think many of us can relate for sure. All right, so next in this communication realm is thinking about calendar planning. And in some cases, a lot of it is meetings, but also how do you make sure that you're dedicating time in your calendar to avoid that meeting burnout and meeting fatigue by dedicating spaces in your calendar for heads down work time or break time to actually get up and get moving and re-energize your body physically. Sometimes it gets overwhelming the way that our calendars get overloaded. But with some, again, pre-thought, some collaboration across the team, that they make this an intentional part of their norms, that we want to be respectful of people's time and energy, and only have those meetings and opportunities for engagement where they're more meaningful. And we design those effectively so that we all feel that we're getting something out of them. So, as I mentioned, blocking out times on the calendar for heads down time or break time. Coming back to the coaching aspect, having one-on-one meetings and making sure that people are checking in with each other and on joint activities, or managers are checking in with employees to make sure that they have what they need. They've got the clarity, they've got the resources, they got the information that they need. Team meetings to make sure that everybody's aligned and working towards the same goals and is working off of the same base of information. And then another tool that I found really useful is what I call knowledge or innovation cafes. The way that works is and how I've done that in a number of the teams that I've led is that on a monthly basis, we would come together. One person would take the lead on identifying a learning tool, whether it's an article or a blog post or something related to the work that we do, shares that with everybody, kind of like a book club. We read it in advance and we come together and discuss it. So it's both kind of an informal learning opportunity that we're taking this intentional time to reflect on new developments in our field, new insights that we can fold into our work. I found that to be another really energizing tool for fostering communication, building competence within the team, and also a leadership opportunity for team members as they take that initiative of saying, here's an article that I want us all to read, and then come together and reflect on. Are there other practices that you've found useful in making sure that calendars don't get bogged down overwhelmingly with unnecessary time sucks? How do you establish boundaries for heads down time in an in-person environment when if people don't get their immediate response, they come to your cubicle? That's a great question. What would you do? I'm sure we've all experienced that. Well, one, what I do is I actually block out on my calendar focus time and encourage folks to check my calendar for when I'm available. So if on my calendar it looks like I'm not available because I've blocked it for focus time, then if they show up at my office door, happy to chat, but can I get back to you and let's have a conversation when I'm able to focus on what you have at hand. Or if it's a super urgent issue, then of course I am able to refocus and address that. Exactly. So I can also tell them, thank you for stopping by. I will come back to you when I'm able to answer your question or respond to your email and make sure that I get back to you in a timely manner. It's a really important part of forming team norms around how we engage with each other. And it's not going to be like a quick change, but with intention, with transparency, with a sense of shared goals that, when we work on this together, we're all going to benefit. Over time, things start to get better. Yeah. Yeah. So as Cindy mentioned, she has a reversible sign that says available or not available. And with time, people have begun to respect it. And some even use one in their space. Yeah. All right. So coming to the next poll. So in this case, you're working on a tight deadline with your team. You value everyone's input, but meetings often run long and hinder productivity. Which of the following strategies would be most effective in promoting efficient communication and keeping your team on track? Is it A, encourage lengthy in-person discussions to ensure everyone has a voice? Is it B, rely solely on email communication to avoid wasting times in meetings? Let's cancel meetings completely. Is it C, implement a communication plan that outlines preferred communication channels for different situations? Or is it D, assign a single point of contact on the team to receive and distribute all information? And yes, you can click on the slide directly to answer the question. All right. Well, thank you so much for responding. Let's see how everybody did. Awesome. So 79.5% say C, implement a communication plan that outlines preferred communication channels for different situations. This one was pretty straightforward, right? And I'm actually seeing that we only have about a few minutes left. So I'm going to go through the remainder of the slides fairly quickly, but I'll also share my contact information in case anyone would like to follow up, have any additional questions. Like I said, this is definitely, each of these is a session in and of itself. So collaboration, and I've been kind of alluding to this throughout the conversation so far. So purposely creating and encouraging opportunities for team members to work together on joint activities or projects, and really acknowledging the differences in work styles and supporting the team on the journey from forming to norming, getting teams to really establish a clarity of purpose, define tasks and activities, define roles and responsibilities up front, and how the team is going to work together goes a long way to preventing or minimizing issues down the line where things go completely downstream and things are not going well, and people are kind of pointing fingers like he was supposed to do this, like no, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. So that intentional focus on creating a shared vision and clarity on roles and responsibilities, and also keeping very kind of focused attention on that journey of it's not just a team because we brought folks together, but like they need to establish team norms to work effectively together. We have another poll, so let's do this one really quickly. You're working on a project with a cross-functional team. While everyone is individually skilled, the team seems to struggle to collaborate effectively. Deadlines are missed, communication is siloed, and there's a lack of shared ownership. What's the most likely reason for this collaboration breakdown, and how can it be addressed? So please go ahead and quickly respond on the slide. All right, well, so great. 47.6% say that the issue here is unclear goals and expectations. So really having a clear roadmap outlining goals and individual goals and deadlines is super important to prevent and avoid issues down the line. Coming to the next C, which is commendation, right? We show up, we want to make sure that we're giving our best to our work, to our teams, to the trust that is entrusted in us as public servants. But we also need to feel valued as individuals. And there's a range of recognition types, from formal awards to simple thank yous. But it's more than just words. It's about listening to employee ideas, really encouraging them to feel safe to share ideas, propose new ways of doing things, supporting their growth, giving them feedback that helps them grow is also an important part of encouraging and motivating and recognizing employees for the great work that they do. And a really important part of recognition that I need to emphasize, and I think everybody already feels this and understands this, that recognition needs to be equitable and timely. Giving the same recognition, just everybody gets a gold star, is not the way to go, because that breeds a sense of unfairness, and then it makes everybody just kind of retreat back. So let me just skip over. Sam is still not doing very well. But a key part coming to the next C is around community and culture building. It's not just a phrase, it's intentional practices. aligning our team, our office, our organizations around shared values, encouraging fairness, authenticity, respect, and inclusion in the workplace is another way to improve well-being, because we feel that we belong. We feel that we're part of a group, that we're meshing together, we support and trust each other, and we deal with conflict effectively when it happens. All right, I know I'm getting the signal that we're wrapping that. So there are a number of the key questions to keep in mind around community and culture building. And I will head to the last C around continuous improvement. And that's an important part of well-being in the workplace as well, really reflecting on both feeling safe to continuously improve yourself and the workplace. So recapping, designing work and the conditions that support work is important to help employees thrive in the workplace. And what I've offered here is an approach around these 7 C's that addresses some of the root causes that negatively impact well-being in the workplace in terms of how work is designed and managed, and addresses the employee well-being from a holistic perspective. So thank you so much for your participation. Hopefully this was useful and there were some key takeaways that you can walk away from this session with, and some thoughts that you can consider. And like I said, I am available and eager to support you on this journey. Please reach out with any feedback, opportunities to collaborate, or any way that I can be of assistance. I've included my personal email here and my LinkedIn link. I'm doing this in a personal capacity because I care about my government colleagues, and I want to do everything I can to both learn and continue to support government colleagues across the federal landscape, as well as the state and local as well. I see a number of state and local participants. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Noah. That was amazing. I loved all the scenarios and all of the energy you brought to that. Wish we could just keep talking about that. I want to say thank you to our 2024 NextGen Partner Alliance for helping us put on today's NextGen Summit. A few quick reminders. Don't forget to fill out your CPE evaluation to get your credit. And if you haven't already, head over to the exhibit hall to check out our booths for information and resources. Our lunch keynote is going to begin at 12:30 Eastern Time. You can access that session through the conference hall and the main environment, and we'll see you at the next session. Thank you so much for joining.